think that's part of what made me stay as well. Like, nobody's going to want me. We had Kevin Samuels telling us if you're over 35, if you're plus size, if you've got multiple kids, you're damaged goods. So I truly believe that. And I think that forced me to feel like, okay, I got to stay here because I'm not going to have any options when I go out here. That was a furthest thing from the truth.
Mhm.
And so I think it was a good way for me to learn, like, you know what, you can't get caught up in all the noise, and just being able to work on myself, getting myself out in different spaces, meeting different people, meeting different caliber of men. It was like, okay, this is this is honestly everything I thought it would be, because I did develop this kind of fear of missing out, where I just felt like I was so deprived of so many things in my marriage that now I have the freedom and I have the space to go and explore. And honestly, it was beautiful. But in the last 5 months, I think now that we're in March, I've actually just taken a break from dating. I've fallen back. I'm like, I just don't want to deal with anyone. I just need to go back to having some quiet, some peace. I want to focus on my podcast, and
Mhm.
I'm working on trying to buy a house this year. And I'm just like, I just want to focus on all those things. And
Yeah.
I've got friends and we go out and stuff like that. If I feel bored, I'm stuck in the house too long. Oh, I could go out and have some dinners. But I've been practicing celibacy and just like taking that time where it's almost like the thrill is gone a little bit. You have so much fun. It's like, okay, yay. But now the thrill is kind of gone. And I just feel so much better here where I don't have the distractions because it is very distracting. And then, if you're dealing with multiple people, it's like you're not being totally forthcoming. You're not being honest. You're lying. Oh, I got something going on with my kids here. No, I'm just going out here. And so it just didn't feel good. And so I just kind of was like, no, this is really not me. And I don't want to take on some of the things that I feel like my ex was doing, like, and I'm seeing with him, like becoming a liar. That it doesn't feel good in my soul. So I was like, I've got to stop this. And so when I am ready to date, I don't want to have multiple people and kind of juggling folks. No, I hope I find someone who I'll take the time to get to know. We'll see where things go, and if not, I know how to easily walk away now.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you talk about the celibacy piece for a minute? Because I think that is important.
Hmm.
And I'm glad you brought that up because in this culture that we live in today, it's the wild, wild west, wild, wild
It,
world.
it
Uh,
is.
can you talk about the mindset and the decision to make that decision? I think we should talk about that because somebody might need to hear this.
I understand. And I've been talking to some of my girlfriends and people who I connect with through the podcast as well. I think when you first, especially if like you're in a really long-term relationship, decades or more, um, it's like you want something new.
Hmm.
Want to go out here again, there's things I wasn't getting in my marriage that people are very open and willing to give me here.
Hmm.
But then I understood the importance of like how like your body count and how that's just like for women, we cannot have a high body count. So that's something I really made like um that's something that was important to me. Like as much as I was dating, I was not sleeping with everyone. Like I could not, and the ones who I did end up getting involved with, like some guys, it was months, 4 or 5 months before I'd even take it to that place. Just because it's like I never felt like the type of person just go give it out to anybody.
Yeah.
I don't care how much you're spending on dinners or like no, that was not me because I didn't grow up seeing that. Even despite what we're hearing in the culture and in music or just all around, it's like, oh, he said you out, it's almost expected. You're supposed to give him some. No, I don't believe that. And you can stand firm in your boundaries and your standards and say, I'm not going to be that person. I think for me, um, not practicing celibacy, um, it's important because I think it gave me a little bit more time to really learn me, learn myself again. Just not feel like I've got to get caught up in all the hype almost. Like I don't have to be that person. And again, I think it was just almost more of a distraction. Like how I tell people all the time, and I don't mind sharing this. I was a compulsive weed smoker, right? For several years. And I found myself getting caught up in smoking weed as much as I was because I needed to numb something. And I think we sometimes use sex the same way. Like you just need to numb something, you just need to feel something.
Hmm.
Um, and it just again, it was like these temporary. the temporary sensations, what is it really doing for you? Especially if you're not in like a relationship with this person, you're
Hmm.
sharing your body, you're risking, STDs or pregnancy or whatever, even the emotional, the soul ties. Like I just could not do that with multiple people.
Yeah.
So for me, I think it just helped me to see like I can be very disciplined. I have more self-control than I thought. Um, and that again, like if I am willing to break this celibacy, it's going to be for somebody who truly deserves it. It's not just going to be, oh, because this guy took me to a five-star steakhouse. No, that's just not enough.
Too
Yeah.
true.
But again, I think it's like we're almost taught to feel like, well, if he's doing this for you, you better do it because what you're not doing, the next woman will. I don't care. Let her do it. So for me, I just honestly, I feel a lot stronger in these last few months, being in this space and just not being bothered. It's much more peaceful.
Yeah. I think you said something.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no, no, you're good. You said something that I think is also important too. I think that, even in an experience for me, I remember connecting with the person you said because sometimes people are trying to numb something. But you also said, sometimes people are trying to feel something. And I don't know if you caught what you said, but sometimes people are trying to, when you deal with people who seem to have no feeling, who seem to have no connection to how you feel, you try to forge that,
Hmm.
like you try to create that moment. And I remember being in a hurt place and having a good moment where we're dating and I'm feeling something, but again it was still from a not a healed place, just being honest. And I wanted that feeling of feeling to not go anywhere.
I get it.
I wanted to keep feeling, and I didn't want the feeling to not end. And it was after being in a place where you're dismissed, overlooked, not paying attention, not no attention. And this wasn't about like, and sometimes it's unfortunate that everybody thinks when you don't get attention, you just go out and look for attention. No, you table that.
Yeah.
You internally table that that's your reality. You're just not getting attention. Your needs are not being met. You just table that. Everybody's not out trying to juggle in multiple relationships. And here's what I think about when you said I ended up finding myself being dishonest is because we don't practice that.
Right.
When you don't practice juggling multiple relationships, you're not good at it, you know?
Right.
So
Yeah.
when I got into dating multiple people, Sean,
Hmm.
I was very uncomfortable with the idea of telling a person I'm dating more than one person. I was very uncomfortable. I had to develop that again. I had to develop that muscle of being able to say because I naturally felt like I was doing something wrong to someone. Although we're all out here dating multiple people to figure this out, and you said you're doing it, it's not comfortable for me.
Yeah.
My angle already is to be with one person. And so even though I feel like I have to, maybe what they say, kiss a couple frogs to get there,
Hmm.
and people are like, well, I'm dating multiple people and we're going to see who, whatever
Rise
person.
to the top.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, no,
Correct.
no. It wasn't that simple, Sean. I was like, well, I don't want him to know that I'm dating someone else because what if he doesn't want to date me anymore? It's all the people pleasing. I'll be swearing it'd be like
Mm.
hanging me, right? It be hanging me. But it's a
Yeah.
truth, that it's not, everybody is not the same. And that's why I appreciated our previous guest who said, it's important for us to go in understanding the perspective of the person that we are dealing with and talking to. Because I've had to, I feel like in my own experiences, it was much more safe for me for someone to not come in and automatically think that I look like and I acted like everybody else. I'm over here literally failing forward in a way that looks very 12 years old, but I was sheltered in certain ways, meaning to your point, if you have only seen a marriage where two people have been together 40, people don't realize that's a sheltering as well. So
Yeah.
you did not experience, right? If a person is sheltered, that means they're covered, they're protected. It doesn't mean they're stupid. It means they're not exposed to certain things. So you were inexperienced with seeing people dating multiple people or talking to multiple people or not being intentional about a person's feelings. And because I remember the first time I got divorced and went on a date and somebody was mean, I was like, they are mean out here. Like, it's like,
Yeah, right.
Right.
If, and mean to me, somebody else may not think it being mean, but I'm used to a person who's a gentleman.
Of
Yeah.
course. That's
So if a
true.
man was using profanity, I feel like it was mean.
Mm,
Yeah.
that's
And that's your reality. And and you have the right to feel like that, you know?
Thank you, Sean.
Because I because I remember going through my divorce. And my ex-wife and I, we were already separated, and I'm just waiting on her to sign these divorce papers. I'm like, lady, what are you doing? I'm spending this money. Anyway, when people found that out, because I literally stayed right down the street from my job, people were like, "Oh, you." I was like, "Look, you ain't about to get me caught up in no nonsense. I got a 14-year-old daughter. Nope, I ain't about to get caught up in no jam. Nah, I'm
He
good.
said no jam.
Yeah, no jam. Because I always tell you, cute guy, keep me on a short leash. I'm like, I'll do something stupid, and that's gonna cost me. So I was like, nah, I'm
It's
good.
that short leash right there. That's it.
I get whoopings quick. God will whoop me in a New York minute. Um, I wanna. This has been a phenomenal episode. Let's just take a moment to hear from our sponsor at Love Fearlessly. This is Love Fearlessly Intimacy Card Deck. My wife and I created 30 cards to ask on a date. I know a lot of people have card decks, but this is from a husband and wife couple who put their minds together to really think about both of the sexes. So no matter if you're on a date, if you've been in a relationship of 10, 15 years, people are always changing and evolving. So Darie, I want to ask a question from the deck, and you ready to answer?
let's do it.
Okay. I ain't gonna get too deep. We'll save the other cards.
My drum roll.
No, yeah. How did you manage hurt and disappointment growing up?
Mm, probably lashing out and rebelling. I had moments where I'd run away as a child. I done stole my mom and daddy's cars, just skipping school. Um, I grew up, I mentioned I grew up in West Hartford, Connecticut, which is a predominantly white town.
Yeah.
So I didn't grow up typical, I'll say, of us. How, like my cousins, my family, I was called the Oreo. You're a white girl on the inside.
Mhm.
So, the moments cussing at my parents and talking crazy,
Yeah.
getting slapped up. So that's kind of how I could remember. And trust me, when they say you get it back with your kids, I'm getting it all back. Okay, I'm getting it all back, especially with my teenager. Lord have mercy. Um, but yeah, I think and a lot of times it was like a cry for help. It's just my way of, you're seeking out the attention. It doesn't matter if it's good attention or bad attention. So that's the way I can easily identify how I, you know, reacted to some disappointment, hurt.
Understood. Understood. Make sure you grab your Love Fearlessly Intimacy card deck at scarytoremarried.com. It's in the description below. Question. What advice would you give to someone who is currently struggling with the decision to leave a marriage, Deary?
Mm. I did a couple of things.
Okay.
I, and this is at the advice of my counselor. He had me first make lists of things that I would do and things I contributed to the household and to the marriage, and write down a list of the things that my ex-husband had done and would contribute. My list far outweighed his list. Sometimes when you see like the discrepancy between the tasks and the chores and the things that you do and things you're responsible for, you come to this realization that you are already a single married woman. And sometimes on the flip side, I know men who are they're like the women in their relationships. They're the
Mhm.
ones taking care of the kids, getting them to practices, doing most of the household, the cooking, the cleaning, managing money and the bills. So it's not always just the women going through this, but at least in my area and with my show, most of the people who I interact with in this setting are women who are struggling and trying to decide if they want to leave. Something else that I had that I did at the advice of my therapist was to create like a pain journal. And when I created this pain journal, I was able to write down almost 200 painful memories and moments.
Wow.
Sometimes when you can actually like take account of all of these different instances and recall these memories because you will try to suppress them, you try to forget about them. But sometimes when you force yourself to look at it, you just realize this is just not the situation for you. Surrounding yourself with positive people, friends, family, cousins, sisters, even my coworkers, even my boss. I'm super close. My boss is like my best friend.
Yeah.
And just being able to be open with these people, learning how to find my voice again and speak about what's happening. I think you just try so hard to protect what's going on. You don't want to share it. You don't want to give the details and you don't want people all in your business, right? But once I got to a space where I was like, I just don't care anymore. People have like I started feeling like I got to put it on the record
Yeah.
that this is what's happening here. And then I started being able to speak about it more and more, and then again got the courage to start my show where I'm speaking about it on social media.
Mhm.
Um, I think there's no one thing you can do, but there's a series of things that you can do and try that will help you get to that space. But everybody I say is going to hit that ceiling where it's like enough is just enough.
Mhm.
Like,
Mhm.
and everybody knows what point that is for them in their situation where it's like, I literally can't take any more of this. I have to go.
Yeah.
And so, sometimes it's like you just got to get to that space. Some people are just so afraid of the unknown. They're so afraid of what's on the other side of it. They're so afraid to be a single mother because Lord knows I was. That was one of the biggest fears because I didn't see that growing up. I
Mhm.
came from a family, my parents have 17 siblings together. So few of them have divorced. And I've got aunties who stayed through hell. Like, why are you still with him?
Mhm.
But they just refused to leave. So I just started feeling like this is what we're supposed to do. I'm
Mhm.
supposed to stay and tough it out and this is how it is. But no, that's not how it is. And I say we don't know how much time we have here. We might only be blessed with another 10 years. Do you want to really spend the last 10 years miserable as ever? Or just spend those 10 years, you have to get through the stigma. Okay, yeah, I'm an ex-wife. Yeah, I'm a single mom, divorcee, and guess what? I am so happy.
Yeah.
I am so incredibly happy to sleep peacefully at night without dissecting lies,
Yeah.
playing detective,
Mhm.
figuring out where's money going, who's this, why are you working late. It's so peaceful. And I wish I had understood this a little bit sooner because, at least for me, I wasted my 20s and most of my 30s in
Yeah.
this. My good years. Good years.
You still got the good years. You still good.
You do. You
Yeah, this
do.
this this is just the beginning. This is a fresh start. I will say that when you talked about the list, right? Who was doing what in the house early in my marriage. And I don't know if I talked to you about this, Q, but my wife or at least for me, I was struggling early in our marriage because I was trying to understand the flow of the household. And my wife was telling me this term that she couldn't put a word to until somebody said it on the podcast. And my wife was like, that's what I was saying years ago. And it's called emotional labor. And so emotional labor is basically everything that goes on inside your head that you account for that can't be seen. The kids got dentist appointments. You got to get this done. That just the greatness of a wife, of a woman who can multitask and put things in different places. So I was struggling because I ain't know, I was like, oh, I got a dentist appointment today, and she like, yeah, it's at two
Yeah.
o'clock, and I'm just like, but she used to be so mad at me about that because she's like, I have too much stuff going on in my head and I need you to pick up on these
Yeah.
things. And I, Darie, I probably got this about, I probably locked in maybe about almost a year and a half now. We've been married almost 8 years, okay?
Okay.
But I'm just saying all that to say is that the emotional labor is real. When you think about, like you said, you're a single wife, when you think about all the things that you do opposed to what that your spouse is helping you or not doing, it can really cause a lot of friction and resentment because you just like I'm better off by myself. Like you say, you peaceful, you can sleep at night without all the drama.
Right.
Yeah. That's where again that equally yoke comes into play. And equally yoke isn't we both go to church. Equally yoke isn't we both like movies and we both enjoy, action movies. Okay.
Yeah.
That's not equally yoked. Equally yoked is again your ability to manage, I want to say life, but the visual is two oxen with this contraption on their backs, and they are plowing the land. And if one is weak or one is immature, then one's going in a direction and the other one that's mature has the task already in hand in mind of where they're supposed to go. And now I got to bring you in, which becomes double work because instead of us being able to do the task, I got to keep reeling you in. Equally yoked is, are we able to maintain the strength of this task together? And that task is the task of life and family and all the things. So equally yoked is important. One of the other things I wanted to elaborate, or should I say expound on, that you said was when you talked about, like writing down, the pain points. Let me intercede on somebody's behalf. Therapy is, or a good support. We're not talking like you said, and I love you, sis, when you was like, I didn't go to a woman who turns to girlfriend who doesn't always have the ability to call me out or give me perspective. Because again, and all you're getting, get an understanding. Sometimes there is just simply a lack of understanding. I'm not a man. I am 100% 10 toes down on I am not a man. I'm not wired like a man. I don't think like a man. So there will be things that I only consider from my very feminine thought process where
Right.
you have to help me help you. Okay. So that's I love you for that. Right. But when you consider also with that, when you're considering, being a partner and you're considering what this relationship dynamic of being fruitful and multiply, people will hear me say, yeah, I will wear that out. Okay. So there's no breath in my lungs. So on all these shows, when y'all hear me say, I'm wearing it out because I believe deeply in that. But
Right.
when we're being fruitful and multiply, right, from through this lens, and you go and have these conversations with a therapist or someone who can hold you accountable or understand what fruitfulness really looks like, is basically what that is. um, you have to have them sometime. You want to know why? Because sometimes you're numb and your standards are low.
Mm.
Yeah.
And so you don't have the ability to write down enough pain points to make you and let you know that it's okay to leave here.
Yeah.
So I remember working with this guy for a very short period of time during COVID. A friend of mine was like, I relocated to Minnesota back where I grew up for about a year. My
Okay.
son lived there or whatever at the time. But however, my friend was like, Aquila, would you mind sitting with my uncle? And I was like, do explain, amen. Because while I am a caring person, I have never been a caregiver in this capacity beyond children. So let's talk about this. What do I got to do? Okay. So she was like, well, you just really got to be there, fix food for him for a couple of hours. And when his nurses come, that kind of thing. But you don't have to do anything else, for the most part, right? Well,
Okay.
that eventually turned. However, I was there one day and she had told me that basically one of his legs was, he had lost the feeling in his leg. And he was laying up in the bed and, and I saw it start bleeding. And because it was out unexposed, meaning it was not under a blanket or anything. So it was just out. He has shorts on or whatever. And I saw it bleeding and it was swelling and then like pus was coming. Sorry, y'all, but I'm just saying it was all these things going on. And I was like, are you okay? He goes, yeah. And I said, do you feel that? And he goes, no, feel what? This man's leg was showing clear signs of infection, but it took somebody else's vision to be able to let him know he was not in a good position.
Right.
And
Mm.
that's what I learned about sometimes being able to have people intercede on your behalf because you may not be able to see this is hurting you.
Yeah.
You may not be able to recognize this is not good for you. There's an infection going on that can cost you your life to some degree. And life being abundant life experience, it doesn't always have to mean that you're going to die. But I had to call at my friend at that moment, and she was able to, come and then, of course, schedule the necessary doctor, nurse, or whoever to come in. But this man did not have the ability to see that there was something going on or feel. And that's why therapy is important as well. It's not just to tell you that, here's the things you need to work on, but sometimes it's to make you aware that
Mhm.
there are some things that you have capacity for that you should not be taking.
I agree. Yeah, therapy helped me with a lot. Like, there's so many things, we definitely like to throw around the term narcissist and stuff, but understanding when you're dealing with a narcissistic personality, understanding what codependency is, understanding different forms of manipulation. Like, there's so many things that I had no idea. And it took for someone who, again, who's taken the time to go to school and study this and learn this and be able to relate in a way that I can understand. That's something I speak really like heavily. Seek therapy, just for you, get it for your kids. Like my kids are working with therapists and counselors because there's so many things that if we had learned some of this stuff younger, we wouldn't tolerate some of this older. Sometimes it takes for us to go through the failed marriages and these relationships or going through certain pain and trauma or grief to really learn, like, okay, this is why I've got to work on self-love. This is why I need to work on having a healthier relationship with God and having a sense of, spirituality and having, the ability to set boundaries with people and family and parents and siblings and all of that. I think this, unfortunately for me, I had to go through this. And I tell people all the time to get where I am right now, I'd go through it again because I'm so happy to be here in this space and
Mm.
to finally feel good about me, where I can look in the mirror and I can feel proud and I can
Yeah.
go put in the time and put in the work on myself and not feel, like I don't deserve it. Like I'm not worthy. Like why bother? He's still gonna cheat. There's nothing I can do to
I
make
get that.
myself any prettier. There's nothing I can do to make him happy. Like why bother then? But no, it's not even about him. It's about me and
Yeah.
how I feel and how I treat and take care of myself. And again, setting that example for our kids. So I'm
Mm.
That's
I'm
good.
with you there.
I
That's
love
good.
that
That's good.
because it's easy and this is why, especially when you single, because I think my single folks don't get enough love because when you can rest at night and have your peace, like my old pastor, he was telling this quick story about how you gonna trade in peace for Tyrone. You gonna trade peace for Larry.
Yep.
Or for Shaniqua, Bonquisha Alizé.
Yeah, right. It's like leave Keisha alone. I would
Okay.
rather have my peace than Keisha. You know?
It's a little bit scary too, because I'll be honest, like, I have people all the time who are in my DMs or at the gym and they want to talk, and I'm almost scared. Like, do I want this person coming in and affecting my peace? Because it feels so good, and it's like I don't even want to open up that window, and then someone comes in, and we're just going through the whole get to know each other phase, and then I find something that one red flag will turn me off, and I'm like, nah, this ain't gonna work. I'm sorry, but lose my number. Thanks for the dinners. Bye. It's like we hear about all the red flags and now you're just the slightest thing can turn you off.
Sure.
And so it's a little bit scary. I'm not
I
even gonna
understand.
pretend.
I
But
understand this.
singleness, I'm embracing it and I'm just enjoying it, especially after so many years of the chaos and the drama.
Yes, for sure. That's real. And as we get ready to end this episode, I want to ask you this last question. What excites you the most about this new chapter in your life and what's next for you?
What excites me now, and I can't express enough, just the freedom,
Hmm.
not having to take care of a grown person. There was just so many things that I had to do for him. So now being able to focus on the things I enjoy, the things I love. Like I said, I paint, I draw. I'm working on the children's book with my mom. There's so many things that I'm so excited to finally have the space to do. And to just continue learning how to love myself properly and more and love my kids better, just being a better mom to them, being more present for them, just doing the things that matter, helping them with school, making sure I'm present at all their practices and games and all that fun stuff. Um, Connecting with my friends, being able to take those girls' trips without someone crying and cussing. It's just it's so many different things that again you almost like realize, gosh, like I don't ever want to take that for granted again. And so even going forward, I love too much that I'm positive I'll remarry at some point in life. If I get the time, I think God's gonna put somebody amazing in my life because I've sowed great seeds in my life, and I feel like even since I left, I've been getting nothing but blessings. Like they've been flowing. And so I'm excited to see what other good things are coming. And I just want to continue spreading love and energy and positivity to people and some encouragement too, because we definitely all need it out here.